Sonic the Hedgehog is one of the strangest video game phenomenons. Everything about it continuously goes against the grain, and no matter what has happened to the franchise, it still stands strong today. Why is that? What is it that makes this blue, rebellious hedgehog so iconic? How is it still able to stand strong after so many failed iterations? And most importantly, why is Sonic so polarizing? You know what I'm talking about. Get in a group and mention the name Sonic. You're going to have varied responses. Many people will look at the hedgehog and instantly think nostalgia. They grew up with him and they've always loved him. Another group of people are die-hard Sonic fans. Not only are the games so engrossed in their DNA, but they are extremely active in the fan community, creating original content based off of Sonic and cursing anybody who says a word about it. And then there's the last group of people, those who hate Sonic. These people typically grew up with him as well, yet there was a transition period in which the expectations put on the franchise gradually fell flat. In many ways, each group relies on nostalgia and allows this nostalgia to oftentimes cloud their judgment about the current state of the franchise. This can be both positive and negative. See, I'm in a strange and awkward place when it comes to Sonic. Growing up, my access to video games was very limited. I played edutainment games on an old Windows XP machine at home. As I got out of elementary school and into middle school, I began to explore Flash games on Newgrounds and other various websites and eventually made my way into emulators. I was fortunate to get a Game Boy when I was 10, and it wasn't until I was 13 when my best friend gave me his GameCube. Over the next years, I'd play most of my games on an emulator until I discovered Steam in college and eventually got a job which allowed me to play more games than I ever could have dreamed of. The point here is that for many people who like Sonic, they grew up on him, on one of those games. I didn't have that opportunity. I've never owned a Sega console, but that didn't mean I didn't know who Sonic was, because every Saturday morning I'd get up to watch 4Kids, and guess who would show up on my television? That's right, Kirby. Well, Kirby and Sonic. Both of these anime adaptations of the franchises became a decent part of my childhood. To this day, Gotta Go Fast is ingrained in my childhood memories. Other than that, I remember the commercials for the games and knew I was missing out. When I went to the dentist of all places, I remember them having a couple of arcade machines, one of which was the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Even when I began to explore Flash games online, you could play Green Hill Zone in your browser. You see, I loved Sonic growing up, but I never had the chance to play an entire game. There was just always something cool about him, and not liking him was absurd. And that makes sense, right? For starters, I had such a limited reach with the franchise, so I couldn't give full-fledged opinions on it. Not to mention, when Sega created Sonic, it was to show off a cooler, faster, edgier character compared to the slower, older, fatter Mario. And for a while, Sega did come on top. Sonic was selling much faster than Mario. Yet, it's 2017 and both a 3D Mario and 3D Sonic game came out in the matter of a couple of weeks. And the reviews are so astoundingly different. You wonder, what the hell happened to Sonic? Here we have Mario Odyssey, a sprawling open world platformer that encourages you to continue playing even after the credits and rewards you for doing so. Odyssey took a formula that's existed since the Nintendo 64 and revolutionized it by adding a capturing ability that shows such a new light on the franchise. It reaches into nostalgia and incorporates many aspects of Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, 3D World, and even its 2D counterparts. Mario Odyssey, whether it's a 10 out of 10 or not, you can't deny that it's a masterpiece and probably one of the best games we've ever seen. Sonic Forces, on the other hand, allows you to create a character. Sure, character creation is so much a part of the Sonic fandom that this seems like a big deal, but games over the recent years have allowed you to make your own character numerous times. For Sonic Forces, this was literally the selling point. Now, I can't speak too much on this game, I haven't played it myself, but here's the general gist of what I've gathered. Sonic Forces is nothing new, it's not inventive, there's nothing fantastic here, it's just another Sonic game. Except this one's not broken, at least not as much as the other ones have been. This doesn't mean that it's not a fun game, plenty of people have said that it's fun and that it's a good time waster for 3 hours. But when I play games now, I don't need a time waster, I want an experience. It's not like the old days anymore, where if you got a bad game or a mediocre game in this instance, you've still played it as much as possible because this is one of 2 games you owned and you've already beaten the other. We have access to literally thousands of video games now, not to mention the amount of other forms of entertainment at our disposal. For you to slap a favorite character in a game that allows me to waste my time for 3 hours seems a bit insulting. If I was a diehard Sonic fan, I wouldn't understand why the teams behind these games keep screwing me over. But here's the thing, Sonic Mania also came out this year, a game created by old fans for fans of the 2D series. It was incredible how well this game was received. In many aspects, it's the best received Sonic game in years. So why was this received well and yet Sonic Forces was just mediocre at best? I think it's actually more simple than we want to admit. And it goes back to the main question, why is Sonic so polarizing? If we could think what makes Sonic fail, and then remove those aspects from the games, obviously we'd have better games. But when I tell you the biggest reason why I think Sonic games continue to fail, you may not like it. See, in 8th grade, when I received that GameCube from my best friend, one of the games that I went out and got for it was Sonic Adventure 2. Again, I loved Sonic growing up, just didn't know a whole lot about him. So when I had a console that could play one of his games, I was pretty excited. I started up the game, played City Escape, which was extremely fun, and continued to play a bit more of the game. Here's the thing though, I never finished it. There were these sections where you were Knuckles and it was no longer the goal to go fast, you had to go dig and find some emeralds or something. It was a bit confusing, I didn't enjoy the area at all, and I just wondered why I couldn't have any more traditional Sonic platforming stages. Over the next few years, I continued to play the 2-player racing mode with my younger siblings, and while I enjoyed that, I never got any deeper. And this is where I think Sonic falls flat at. When the franchise decided to move from 2D to 3D, I think this was its biggest mistake. See, back in the late 90s, it was black and white. If you have a 2D game series that was successful, you have to make a 3D iteration of it now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time ensured that this had to happen. Not to mention the fact that hardware was increasingly going from 2D to 3D, so really, you had no other options. So franchises did it, and then they realized 3D wasn't for every franchise. Mega Man 64, Castlevania 64, Bomberman 64, all of these just didn't work. So these companies went back to 2D and continued to be successful from there. Sonic, on the other hand, didn't quite learn its lesson. Now I should point out, Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2 both were received pretty well. So I guess it makes sense for them to continue down this path. But the thing is, they never truly mastered 3D Sonic. When Mario 64 became Mario Sunshine, there was an apparent upgrade. The game was inevitably better. As each 3D Mario iteration occurred, the franchise continued to grow with it. Sonic, however, seemed to continue to take steps in the wrong direction. Sonic Heroes was average at best. Shadow the Hedgehog was consistently trying to be too edgy. Sonic 06 is just a joke. Sonic Boom was also a joke. Iteration after iteration begat more and more failures. This isn't to say that there aren't any good Sonic games. Generations and Colors are both generally favored, with Generations typically cited as the best 3D Sonic game. But even then, most of the fans of Generations enjoyed it for its 2D levels. I truly think that Sonic is one of those things that could have ended up being more successful if they stuck with 2D. In a world where indie studios are going back to the roots of video games and creating 8-bit and 16-bit style games, there's no reason why Sega couldn't be doing the same thing. Again, take a look at Sonic Mania. It did really well. So this is why Sonic is as polarizing as it is. The people that love the franchise still have the nostalgia of its 2D games, and when looking at 3D, probably have the nostalgia of Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, but in their eyes, Sonic can't ever do too much wrong because of its history. The people that hate the franchise, they still have the nostalgia as well for its 2D games, and they just hate its 3D counterparts. Nobody truly hates Sonic in all of his aspects. Ask just about anyone and they'll say what's really great about the 2D games, but when it comes to 3D, I still believe that maybe these games shouldn't even exist. Or maybe they should? Because here's the thing about Sega, the thing that I actually really love about the company. It takes a tremendous amount of risk. Sure, Sega could have stuck to 2D, but the reality is they didn't. They continue to make games. Not only that, but they continue to try to innovate them in some way or another. Sonic Unleashed added a werehog and beat 'em up style gameplay. Most people didn't like it, but it was different. Sonic Generations played off of nostalgia and incorporated 2D levels, and everybody loved it. I don't know what the hell Sonic 06 did, but they made it and still put it out on the market. Those developers knew what problems it had, So they had to have pretty big balls to put that on the market anyways. It was all about risk. Not every game in a franchise is going to be perfect, and that's okay. Sonic Forces might not be a great game, but as long as someone has fun with it, maybe that's more important. I look up to Sega. I've always been a huge advocate for risk taking. Go big or go home. High risk equals high reward. And Sega has the biggest reward that anybody could ask for. To this day, Sonic is still talked about. No matter the controversy surrounding him or whether people love him or hate him, he's still relevant. They did what they sought out to do over 25 years ago. Create an iconic and lovable character that rivals Mario. And you know what? I think they did that really well.